here today because Five is launching so many projects in NYC, but they speak directly to so many people who have been incarcerated or touched by incarceration or have lived in a community that's been affected by incarceration. So without further ado, Five Mualimak, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I'm just happy to be here. It's good to see you.
Yes. So now let's jump into this. You are launching these projects right now.
The Incarcerated Nation, which was an organization of post-incarcerated leaders, just getting people who are directly impacted by different subjects to advocate on their own behalf, but also build a movement on each lane. So from youth injustice to aging in prison, it's sort of like this collective. The Incarcerated Nation then grew to be a network because of so many projects. Working over the years in New York, there has been two cities. Everybody that knows New York knows it's New York, New York. You have the rich New York and you have the poor New York. And often those clashes lead to a large arrest and community supervision for some crimes. We in New York, just between the ages of like 7 and 15, we have over 800,000 kids on probation, over 400,000 young girls at a young age on probation. And sort of these categories of youth are stuck on long sentences, sometimes often 6 months in an arrest, and they'll adjudicate that for 5 years on probation. So it becomes this 6-5 sort of sentence split. The split is then brought into the community and the community supervision. But we, as people previously incarcerated, as mentors, as organizations, leaders, we end up creating the services that we see need. And so over the years, there were other services to support them. The city came together, created Arches, we had Next Step, all these other programs, but they gave small support, 6 months of support. We knew what the problem was. Organizations needed funding. We knew that the youth needed support, housing, and training, and sort of these periods of support while they're on probation. It's a statement that it takes a village to raise a child, and we believe that at heart. We also believe in the ability of human resilience. And second chances, knowing our youth and our young adults, majority of times haven't even gotten a first chance. And so by supporting them in their most dire times, when they're under correctional supervision, they have these long community sentences. A lot of them have dilapidating stability. In other words, meaning that they're not even stable in their housing and where they're living at. And that poses a threat for their ability to function in school, for their ability to have gainful employment, for the ability to continue and at least have an area in their life where they're doing things that young people do, express themselves and have opportunities that their parents didn't even have when they were their age, right? Our youth aren't taught the life skills that are needed. There's no civics in school, there's no banking, there's no organized, functional community organizing, there's no citizenship training. None of those things exist in public schools, which we can add in their later years. But those are the things that make you feel independent as an adult. The ability to go and vote, the ability to be registered to vote, the ability to know your community board, understand your structure of government, that it's as a citizen, you have certain rights, and certain rights build communities, and neighborhoods make up communities, and communities make up cities. And being a member of that is starkly different for young adults, especially Black youth in New York City, because you're outcasted all the time. It's a stark difference to feel like you have a right. The other point is that our youth, not only are they marginalized when we're getting them, providing the resources, we have to create a network in order to sort of hodgepodge the resources they need. And the process of building YAPP, which is the Youth Anti-Prison Project, was it designing it to be a pyramid structure. At the top, you have the Youth Anti-Prison Project, which is centered on jail support, prison support for youth not going to jail, creating alternative to incarceration programs. It's a 16-week trauma-informed, credible messenger trainer. It's a trainer-trainer model where youth learn to mentor other youth. And when they complete that, they have a variety of academies that they can then flow into for the remainder of their correctional period. Whether it's, and those academies come with businesses attached to them as well. But YAPP as a structure then also has an income-producing system as well. It's called the Young Adult Print Project, which they then print all of the shirts and T-shirts and put contracts for most of the nonprofits that work in the criminal justice field, from the defenders to the neighborhood defenders to other criminal justice organizations, Lobby days are our big days. But it's good to see the older generation supporting the youth, and then they're allowed to make an income while they're going to college or continuing their education in one of our scholarship programs. And so even under that, we have a service program, which is the young adult peer providers. And we're partnering with Health First so that they can sign up youth for healthcare. The majority of young people who are affected by gun violence don't even have healthcare. They're getting healthcare when they get shot, or they're signing up for health services after a major atrocity or injury or violence. And so with that, we feel that young people are the perfect messengers for young people. And across the academies, that service is a part of it. From Mikey Likes It Ice Cream to the Girls Project, we empower younger people to be advocates not only for their own behalf, but also for their peers. And so that provider network puts another layer of credible messengers in the community and young adults helping young adults. And then we have, of course, they all just talk so much. We have the Young Adult Perspective Project, where they then have their own media channel and sort of have their own expressionistic way of communication. Because when you don't have a platform to express yourself and feel validated and address the systems that impact you, you feel powerless. You lose hope. And once you lose hope, you turn to survival methods, you know?
Yeah. Tell us, why does NYC actually need the Youth Anti-Prison Project?
Now, we're living in a coronavirus pandemic. There is a need for the city to convert and transform. If one thing we do in New York is survive, we overcome atrocities, and we stick together, and the whole city will change and adapt. And as we're adapting, outdoor vending, outdoor eating, spacious, is becoming more of a health risk than it is a priority for business. And so with that, we need to have youth markets. This is the idea for the young adult, the Youth Anti-Prison Project, is that the structure it's under has all of these academies that also build open markets. And so the youth live in the space. They have the ability to take continued education. It's a support system that's long-term, which is very short than, I only got 6 months to help you fix these problems and get out of this court case. It's like, what do you want to do with your life? We're going to set short-term goals, we're going to set long-term goals, and we're going to meet both. And by the time you leave here, you have your college education or you're full-time employed, and we adjust and move you over to a permanent residency property where then you're a tenant and then you're stable. You know, I had a young person tell me that stability was like winning the lottery in New York. And it was like, woo, I can pay all my bills on time. And it's sad because we have 66,000 people homeless every night. 40 to 50% of those are young people, young adults. We live in a city, and I'm just going to explain this with a little stat. We have a conundrum here in New York City, and in New York City even more. We have over 5 million people living in the city on a constant basis. We have laws that require age legality for certain service. At 18, you can be evicted, but you can't sign a lease till you're 21. You can't move into an apartment till you're an adult. You can't buy a pack of cigarettes or drink alcohol, but at 17, you're arrested, you're an adult. At 16, you can receive charges. And we start arresting kids at 9. You can't get public assistance until way past your 22nd birthday. You can be thrown out of foster care, and you can't get an apartment even though you have a Section 8 voucher because you're 18. And so within that period, we then further compound the youth who are already marginalized, already socioeconomically marginalized. There's already a gap of education racially for this determinate amount of race of people. There's already poor health conditions, poor income. Most of them are in New York 15, which is the poorest district in the United States of America, right? The entire country. You have all of this. And then on top of that, you start with the jail sentence. On top of that, you build a 5-year community supervision sentence, which requires you to somehow magically get employed, but it doesn't count as progress. There are some programs, but not when you have over 500,000 kids that are just 7 to 13. Not when you have millions of kids under correctional supervision, to the point that as an advocate, we usually don't agree with the district attorneys, right? We wrote a bill in partnership with Qatar. The Less is More Act, saying about technical violations. Every DA signed on as a sponsor to the bill because they're like, yeah, we have too many youth and too many people on violations, but serving community sentences as well. And it's just this constant cycle. Someone has to step in and be that village, build that community to support our young people for the lineage of that sentence, and be able to embrace them and build their own resilience to the point that they can go out and embrace and build other people's resilience. And it's a healing process. Healed people heal people, and often sometimes because we're hurt, we'll hurt other people. So violence is up, crime is up, police shootings are up, death is up, public health is down. And as credible messengers and as leaders within our community, we have an urgency to change that. And our project will provide the training for that, the certification, the ability to understand public health, mental health, the ability to work with youth and mentor them as well. It's an all-infused class with returning citizens, young adults, justice impacted, but also community members dealing with the emergency networks. And so through that, we're creating layers of responsible community members to heal our neighborhoods, district by district, because it has to start from the ground up. And yes, you can just replace buying Haagen-Dazs and go to Mikey Likes It and support the program, right? Yes, you don't have to buy your cosmetic here, but you can buy your natural skincare, soap, lotion, and everything from the Girls Project, right? Yes, you can support one of the fundraisers, which will lead into housing and lead these youth into stability and stable situations where they become advocates, but supporters of their own. And when they graduate, it becomes an alumni system where they return back and help the other youth in a guiding hand. Because that's what we do in New York. We have a pandemic on top of the pandemic of coronavirus. And that pandemic is rapid homelessness, massive death. We have two cities, New York, New York. We have the rich and we have the poor. And sad to say, there is no bridge in between. And so these academies are needed for economic stimulus within the community, safe food distribution. And everyone is suffering from so much trauma. We've lost millions of human beings in the last year, historically amount of death. Our training allows the youth to work in the food industry and the public health industry, but trauma informed. That way customers are receiving better service, better food. We even will partner with other organizations to supply employees for them. Employees that won't curse out your staff and argue with your customers because they have an understanding of the socioeconomic and the impact of that neighborhood and the community they serve. And then also by combining service and product with community needs. I think you should go to the grocery store and be able to register to vote and also find out about who's your local candidate and get an after-school program and maybe get health care too. I believe that we should have businesses that are selling us holistic food, but is centered in the community so that the dollar stays in the community, so that the economic development of our smaller inner city communities rises up. Our food vendor program, we have a huge strike in New York where you can't get a vendor's license. Even veterans, we have veterans right now trying to seek their vendor's license and they have to subrun it from someone else. That safe food distribution is going to be a change in the city. People are going to be eating like that. And the open markets can also employ youth who are justice impacted, providing jobs and safe spaces for them to employ themselves, but also repay the community with their service. And so by infusing emergency services and trauma-informed education and full wraparound support with our partners, because we have like the defenders and the neighborhood defenders, and because of that network, we're a village, and it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. So incarceratednationnetwork.org is the website, and from there you'll see the list of academies. First, we have the Young Adult, the Youth Anti-Prison Project and a Young Adult Perspective Project coming out. That'll also be at the same time as Mikey Likes It Academy. Mikey Likes It Academy works with Mikey Likes It Ice Cream. The youth are trained, they have their vendor's permit, they're learning cooking skills. They also are able to train to work in the stores. And then certain days of the week, they're going to school, they're taking trauma-informed training, they're going to college, and they're working in the Mikey Likes It store. And so that's a business that's supporting. We're going to have our own flavors and our own income merchandise producing systems as well in the stores and in the trucks. We have ice cream trucks that will decimate to the city, not only providing resources, but that sale where a kid is selling an ice cream cone to another kid or giving an ice cream cone to another kid is a perfect time to find out if he's employed, if he has health care, or find out what's happening that his family may need. So it's also a resource mobile going around the city. Then we have the Girls Project, which is an immense program that's going to include housing, include treatment, but also have a small space for women who are returning home as well as they're mentored by the younger women. They are more working on business and modeling and merchandising. And so a lot of the items that are health items, soap, beauty, cosmetics, they have a chance to be on the other side of the counter, but be the bosses of their own business. And while they're going to school, and certain things are included in this program, civics, political education, of course, knowing your rights, certain business education, because now that gives us a chance to teach all of the youth banking. You have to get a bank account. You have to understand what banking is. You have to understand the structure of what an investment, what an incorporation is. You have to take the civics class because you're a part of your duties as an advocate is also to speak to certain legislators and work within your community with the emergency service. And so from the Girls Project, we also have a project which is called Help Station Academy. It's already operating as a business, but this nonprofit component will also house the youth and do food distribution from the farmers upstate, bringing produce, fresh produce, creating these farmers markets, hosting them, and employing other youth to be the ushers of that market. And so imagine being able to get farm fresh produce in your community all the time and having the young adults deliver them to you or a system where you can go pick them up. And so all of these academies are needed. All of these support systems are needed. And unfortunately, rather than trying to find the funding, I believe New York can come together and support it by just supplying necessary items, and especially public health. This city right now needs access to clean, healthy, fresh produce, fresh materials of food, delivered in a safe distance, and in the open market. We have more patios and bistros with sort of decks and outdoor permits now than ever before, and they're not going away. And so transforming that by taking the population of justice impacted youth as well in the community to be able to be employed and empower them. And so these projects, one after the other, will build the community that we need, that we can replicate in other states, but solve our conundrum and our gap in New York.
I'm Mualim Ak of Incarcerated Nation. Thank you so much for taking this time and talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what they don't understand is that this is youth power, but we in here, right, E? We in here.
Yeah,
you already know. Come down the mic, you tell them where they come at. You
Yo,
know what I mean?
Mikey likes the ice cream. We make waffles, floats, and shakes. Slide through from Sunday all the way up until Friday and Saturday and the next Sunday.
And we lit in the home coming this week,
that's
Wednesday.
A fact. Harlem is lit.
Waffle Crush Wednesday.
Holla at me, I got y'all.
You
Trust me,
know.
I got y'all.
Huh?
Go there for the cheese, do that up on my back, and you know them off for eat. So don't test me kill your blood clean. Yeah, hear me? Me say me have to go and feed. Know me and a rat, but me I go there for the cheese. Do that up on my back, and you know them off for eat. So don't test me kill your blood clean. From the gully, get the youths that come up from the gully. Don't take talk on the streets, them we study. I count up the cash, tell mom if you not worry. I pray a different part and I chat it in a hurry. From the gully, get the youths that come up from the gully. Take that got the streets, let me study. I count up the cash, tell me if you no worry. I pray a different part and I chat it in a hurry. It started that first Christmas, ain't really get shit I asked for. My wish list was feeling typed down. So bro, she said they hit.
Another day.